There is only one pusher in Mexico City, and that is Lupita. She has been in the business 20 years. Lupita got her start with 1 gram of junk and built up from there to a monopoly of the junk business in Mexico City. She weighed 300 pounds, so she started using junk to reduce. But only her face got thin, and the result is no improvement. Every month or so, she hires a new lover, gives him shirts and suits and wristwatches, and then packs him in when she has enough. Lupita pays off to operate wide open as if she were running a grocery store. She doesn't have to worry about stool pigeons because every law in the federal district knows that Lupita sells junk. She keeps outfits and glasses of alcohol so the junkies can fix in the joint and walk out clean. Lupita sells her stuff in papers. It is supposed to be heroin. Actually, it is pentapon cut with milk sugar and some other crap that looks like sand and remains undissolved in the spoon after you cook up. I started scoring for Lupita's papers through Ike, the old-time junkie I met in the lawyer's office. I'd been off junk 3 months at this time. It took me just 3 days to get back on. When my wife saw I was getting the habit again, she did something she had never done before. I was cooking up a shot 2 days after I connected with old Ike. My wife grabbed a spoon and threw the junk on the floor. I slapped her twice across the face, and she threw herself on the bed sobbing, then turned around and said to me, "Don't you want to do anything at all? You know how bored you get when you have a habit. It's like all the lights went out." "Oh, well, do what you want. I guess you have some stashed anyway." I did have some stashed. Lupita's papers cost 15 pesos each, about $2. They're half the strength of a $2 stateside cap. Ike told me she has to charge high because she pays off the law. So I asked Ike, "What about scripts?" He told me that Croakers could only prescribe M in solution. The most they were allowed to prescribe in one script was 15 centigrams, or about 2.5 grains. I figured it would work out a lot cheaper than Lupita, so we started hitting the Croakers. We located several who would write the script for 5 pesos, and 5 more would get it filled. Mexican croakers are not like stateside croakers. They never pull that professional man act on you. A croaker who will write it all will write without hearing a story. In Mexico City, there are so many doctors that a lot of them have a hard time making it. I know croakers who would starve to death if they didn't write morphine scripts. They don't have patient 1 unless you call junkies patients. I was keeping up Ike's habit as well as my own, and it ran into money. At first we filled the scripts without too much trouble, but after a few weeks the scripts had piled up in the drugstores that would fill them scripts, and they began packing in. It looked like we would be back with Lupita. One of the script-writing doctors suggested to Ike that he apply for a government permit. Ike explained to me that the Mexican government issued permits to hypes, allowing them a definite quantity of morphine per month at wholesale prices. The doctor would put in an application for 100 pesos. I said, "Go ahead and apply," and gave him the money. I did not expect the deal to go through, but it did. 10 days later, he had a government permit to buy 15 grams of morphine every month. I remember the first time he filled the permit. A whole box full of cubes of morphine, like a junky's dream. I had never seen so much morphine before all at once. I put out the money and we split the stuff. 7 grains per month allowed me about 3 grains per day, which was more than I ever had in the States. So I was supplied with plenty of junk for a cost of $30 a month, as compared with about $300 a month in the U.S. Junk takes everything and gives nothing but insurance against junk sickness. Every now and then I took a good look at the deal I was giving myself and decided to take the cure. When you're getting plenty of junk, kicking looks easy. You say, "I'm not getting any kick from the shots anymore, I might as well quit." But when you cut down into junk sickness, the picture looks different. One morning in April, I woke up a little sick. I lay there looking at shadows on the white plaster ceiling. I remembered a long time ago when I lay in bed beside my mother, watching lights from the street move across the ceiling and down the walls. I felt the sharp nostalgia of train whistles, piano music down a city street, burning leaves. A mild degree of junk sickness always brought me the magic of childhood. It never fails, I thought, just like a shot. I wonder if all junkies score for this wonderful stuff. I went into the bathroom to take a shot. I was a long time hitting a vein. The needle clogged twice. Blood ran down my arm. The junk spread through my body, an injection of death. The dream was gone. I looked down at the blood that ran from elbow to wrist. I felt a sudden pity for the violated veins and tissue. Tenderly I wiped the blood off my arm. "I'm going to quit," I said aloud. Then I started drinking. I had never been able to drink before when I was on the junk or junk sick. But eating hop is different from shooting the white stuff. You can mix hop and lush. At first I started drinking at 5 in the afternoon. After a week I started drinking at 8 in the morning. Stayed drunk all day and all night and woke up drunk the next morning. Every morning when I woke up, I washed down Benzedrine, Sanacine, and a piece of hop with black coffee and a shot of tequila. Then I lay back and closed my eyes and tried to piece together the night before and yesterday. Often I drew a blank from noon on. You sometimes wake up from a dream and think, "Thank God I didn't really do that." Reconstructing a period of blackout, you think, "My God, did I really do it?" The line between saying and thinking is blurred. Did you say it or just think it? After 10 days of the cure, I had deteriorated shockingly. My clothes were spotted and stiff from the drinks I had spilled all over myself. I had never bathed. I had lost weight. My hands shook. I was always spilling things, knocking over chairs, and falling down. But I seemed to have unlimited energy and a capacity for liquor I never had before. My emotions spilled out everywhere. I was uncontrollably sociable and would talk to anybody I could pin down. I forced distastefully intimate confidences on perfect strangers. Several times I made the crudest sexual propositions to people who had given no hint of reciprocity. I was around every few days. "I'm glad to see you getting off, Bill. May I fall down and be paralyzed if I don't mean it. But if you get too sick and start to puke, here's 5 centigrams of M." Ike took a severe view of my drinking. "You're drinking, Bill. You're drinking and getting crazy. You look terrible. You look terrible in your face. Better you should go back to stuff than drink like this." I was in a cheap cantina off Dolores Street, Mexico City. I had been drinking for about 2 weeks. I was sitting in a booth with 3 Mexicans drinking tequila. The Mexicans were fairly well dressed. One of them spoke English. A middle-aged, heavy-set Mexican with a sad, sweet face sang songs and played the guitar. He was sitting at the end of a booth in a chair. I was glad the singing made conversation impossible. 5 cops came in. I figured I might get a shake, so I slipped the gun and holster out of my belt and dropped them under the table with a piece of hop I had stashed in a cigarette package. The cops had a quick beer and took off. When I reached under the table, my gun was gone, but the holster was there. I was sitting in another bar with a Mexican who spoke English. The singer and the other 2 Mexicans were gone. The place was suffused with a dim yellow light. A moldy-looking bullhead mounted on a plaque hung over the mahogany bar. Pictures of bullfighters, some autographed, decorated the walls. The word "saloon" was etched in the frosted glass swinging door. I found myself reading the word "saloon" over and over. I had the feeling of coming into the middle of a conversation. I inferred from the expression of the other man that I was in mid-sentence, but did not know what I had said or what I was going to say, or what the discussion was about. I thought we must be talking about the gun. I'm probably trying to buy it back. I noticed the man had the piece of hop in his hand and was turning it over. "So you think I look like a junkie," he said. I looked at him. The man had a thin face with high cheekbones. The eyes were a gray-brown color, often seen in mixed Indian and European stock. He was wearing a light gray suit and a tie. His mouth was thin, twisted down at the corners. A junkie mouth for sure. There are people who look like junkies and aren't, just as some people look queer and aren't. It's a type that causes trouble. "I'm going to call a cop," he said, starting for a phone attached to a support pillar. I jerked the telephone out of the man's hand and pushed him against the bar so hard he bounced off it. The man smiled at me. His teeth were covered with a brown film. He turned his back and called the bartender over and showed him the piece of hop. I walked out and got a cab. I remember going back to my apartment to get another gun, a heavy-caliber revolver. I was in a hysterical rage, though exactly why I cannot, in retrospect, understand. I got out of a taxi and walked down the street and into the bar. The man was leaning against the bar, his gray coat pulled tight over his thin back and shoulders. He turned an expressionless face to me. I said, "Walk outside ahead of me." "Why, Bill?" he asked. "Go on, walk." I flipped the heavy revolver out of my waistband, cocking it as I drew, and stuck the muzzle in the man's stomach. With my left hand, I took hold of the man's coat lapel and shoved him back against the bar. It did not occur to me until later that the man had used my correct first name and that the bartender probably knew it too. The man was perfectly relaxed, his face blank with controlled fear. I saw someone approaching from behind on my right side and half turned my head. The bartender was closing in with a cop. I turned around, irritated at the interruption. I shoved the gun in the cop's stomach. "Who asked you to put in your 2 cents?" I asked in English. I was not talking to a solid, three-dimensional cop. I was talking to the recurrent cop of my dreams, an irritating, nondescript, darkish man who would rush in when I was about to take a shot or go to bed with a boy. The bartender grabbed my arm, twisting it to one side out of the cop's stomach. The cop stolidly hauled out his battered .45 automatic, placing it firmly against my body. I could feel the coldness of the muzzle through my thin cotton shirt. The cop's stomach stuck out. He had not sucked it in or leaned forward. I relaxed my hold on the gun and felt it leave my hand. I half raised my hands, palm out, in a gesture of surrender. All right, I said, and then added, "Bueno." The cop put away his .45. The bartender was leaning against the bar, examining the gun. The man in the gray suit stood there without any expression at all. "Está cargado, it's loaded," said the bartender, without looking up from the gun. I intended to say, "Of course, what good is an unloaded gun?" But I did not say anything. The cop took me firmly by the arm. "Vámonos, gringo," he said. I walked out with the cop. I felt limp and had difficulty controlling my legs. Once I stumbled and the cop steadied me. I was trying to convey the idea that while I had no money on my person, I could borrow some de amigos. My brain was numb. I mixed Spanish and English, and the word for borrow was hidden in some filing cabinet of the mind, cut off from my use by the mechanical barrier of alcohol-numbed connections. The cop shook his head. I was making an effort to reform the concept. Suddenly the cop stopped walking. "Andale, gringo," he said, giving me a slight push on the shoulder. The cop stood there for a minute, watching me as I walked on down the street. I waved. The cop did not respond. He turned and walked back the way he had come.